You're listening to TalkTainmentRadio.com.
The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guest and not necessarily those of TalkTainmentRadio.com, the management, the staff, or K&E World Network, LLC.
Heard on TalkTainmentRadio.com, and I'm Yolanda Robinson, and this is radio the way it should be heard. Listening audience, oh, do I have a treat for you? We have in the studio one of the most dynamic women in our city. Her name is Judge TERRI Jameson. You know what? She has been in Columbus, I think, for about 40 years, but from the minute she stepped on the grounds of Columbus, of Ohio, she stepped on running and doing so many amazing things in our city. You know, she's not just a judge, she's a minister. She's worked with so many organizations trying to solve some of the issues that are going on in the community, working with the youth and working with the National Council for Negro Women. But I have her in the studio. Judge Jameson, how are you today?
I'm doing well, Yolanda. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak to you and the viewers.
Oh, we're glad to have you on. And you know what? I see that you were a social worker at one time, and also an attorney, and you were insurance and real estate. But why did you decide to go into law?
Well, you know, I had been a small business owner for about 16 years. I owned my own insurance agency. And in the 90s, contracts started to change, and I said I needed to be more in control of what was going to happen in my life. So I decided I would go back and finish my undergraduate degree. I started at Bluefield State College in West Virginia, but I had never finished. So I decided I would finish my degree, and that led me into law.
Wow. And you're also a minister too, right? How do you do that? I mean, you're a judge and you're a minister, you're a mother, a grandmother. I mean, it seems like you got a lot of things going on.
Well, I'm like most women. We have a lot of things that we do all day long. But think
you're doing well. I mean, everything. It seems like you do everything that you touch, you're doing it quite well.
Well, you know, we can praise God for his grace and for his multiplication of the things that we do.
Yeah.
I've been in ministry and ordained in ministry now since 2002. So I've been in ministry for 18 years, and I'm a member of the Pentecostal Assemblies of the World and Incorporated. So I thank God for just giving me the grace and helping me to be able to do all of the things that I do.
Oh, yes. We've been watching you, and I'm saying, oh, my gosh, look at her. And we know everywhere she goes, it's going to be great. So, you know, they say that if you do what I asked you to do, I will bless. That's what the Bible says. I will bless everything that you touch. And certainly things that you are touching are turning into gold. Now, you were in law as you were practicing law, and then you decided to become a judge. Why did you do that?
Well, I think when I went to court as a African-American woman, I did not see a lot of women, and I certainly did not see a lot of minority women. Mm-hmm. And I felt that seeing people of color on the bench gives the public some assurance that they are going to be heard, they're going to be treated fairly, and that there's going to be some cultural sensitivity to who they are. Yeah. So I believe that we bring a sense of cultural sensitivity. Yeah. We bring a balance, we bring diversity, and it increases the public trust.
Now, you as a judge, you're already a judge, but you're running for the Court of Appeals. Now, as a judge in the domestic court, what has been some of your greatest accomplishments?
one of my greatest accomplishments, I feel, has been the Compass program. The Compass program helps men and women that are behind in child support and facing contempt of a court order and can be sentenced to jail. I've linked with a number of community partners and Franklin County Child Support Enforcement Agency. And we bring those community partners to the court once a month when COVID wasn't happening. And they actually meet with the individuals there. We link them to services, whether it's education, whether you want a certification for employment. You might need to talk to legal aid about an expungement. You might need your driver's license reinstated if it's been suspended because of child support. So we bring all of those services to the court where individuals can interact with those community resources right at the court. They can find out if they qualify for the amnesty program to help them get their driver's license back. We can remove barriers to employment. And when a man or a woman has a job and they're able to pay their child support, it shows us through the statistics that they're also more likely to interact with their children. When people don't have anything to bring to the table, then they're not likely to interact with their children. And that's why we need strong parents so that children will have security, have their needs met financially, and have parent involvement.
Well, that's good for you. I mean, when you see a judge, you just think they're on a court bench and just making decisions. But to combine all those services, because sometimes people don't know about the resources that are out there, even though these organizations try very hard to get it out. There's some people that don't know that they could probably get their record expunged, and they could get legal aid services. So that is wonderful that you did that. How much experience did you have before you went into the courts as working with families? Or I thought that saw you as a social worker, but how much experience had you had before that?
My first job was as an eligibility worker working in the Department of Welfare in West Virginia. So I did that. I was a fraud investigator for the Department of Welfare. And then I went into being an underground coal miner. So I worked for U.S. Steel and worked for Ogle Coal Company. I was a coal miner.
Oh my God!
And I left.
Oh wow!
I left working for the Department of Welfare and went to work for the mines because it paid more.
Yes.
Let's be for real.
Yeah, that's true. My mom and dad, not my mom, my dad and my grandpa and uncles worked in the coal mines of West Virginia.
Yeah, so I worked in the coal mines because that was in the early 1980, and I was making almost $12 an hour.
Yes.
Then. So when they began to lay off and shut down, I moved to Ohio to get better opportunities for employment because employment dried up when the mines dried up.
Yes.
So I went through the CETA program. I know you remember the CETA program.
Yes.
I did some retraining.
Wonderful.
I learned how to do data entry and key punch. That was some of the first employment that I got. I worked for Xerox and OCLC, and I was a Kelly Temp.
Oh my God!
So I've done a lot of things since I moved to Columbus, and like you said, I've stayed consistent.
Yeah.
But my first real job, I became an office manager for Howard Tyler's State Farm Insurance Agency, and I think he was the first Black-owned in a State Farm agency here. And he is the one that kind of said, why don't you get into insurance? So when I got into insurance, I went with the company. I was a captive agent. I did 16 years with that company.
Wow.
And in the 90s, I saw change coming. I said, get your education, be ready for change. And who knew? I didn't know that I would go into law school. But after I graduated, I was a public defender.
Wow.
And then for a short time, and then I decided I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I need to get back into the practice, and I hung out my own shingle. So I did criminal trials, domestic, juvenile, and probate work, not only in Franklin County, but in several other counties around the state.
Wow. Well, it sounds like you have a lot of qualifications to be a judge of the Court of Appeals, because you have to have knowledge about all that as people are appealing their court cases.
Absolutely.
And I understand, people tell me that you are a excellent writer, so that is another attribute to your being a judge of the Court of Appeals. Now, what do you plan to do when you win? What is one of the first plan? I'm already seeing you win. But what's one of the first things that you plan to do when you get to be a judge of Court of Appeals? What would be one of the things that you would want to do?
Well, I'm going to have about a 6-month lag time, because even if I'm elected on November 3rd, my seat on the Court of Appeals does not open up until July the 1st.
Oh, okay.
So the first thing I would do is make sure that I have cleaned up all of my cases in the domestic and juvenile court.
Wow.
What I see for the Court of Appeals, I see when I've been up there a lack of diversity in staff. I would like to be able to help diversify the staff, bring back the minority clerkship program that the Columbus Bar Association uses to give law school students an opportunity to come and be an intern at the Court of Appeals.
Yeah.
I have had numerous interns through the College of Social Work at OSU, work through the domestic and juvenile court to help them get their hours that they need of internship. So I see myself continuing to contribute to the internship hours for different schools, whether it's Capital Law School or Moritz College of Law. I'm adjunct faculty at Capital University Law School, so I'm already interacting with the students, so I'm hoping that they'll want to come and be an intern.
Oh, definitely. And I saw that, they must love you, like all of us do, because they gave you a strong endorsement, the social workers, so that is wonderful. Yes. I saw that on your bio. That is wonderful. So, I hope we're not in COVID at that time, but do you have any plans to help navigate the court system through COVID once you step into that office?
Well, most of the courts are already operating virtually, and that has been a blessing to many people. And in our current court, we're operating virtually, and if you're a single parent that's got a child you're coming to court for, you can step into an office and get on a Zoom call and be able to participate in a hearing without having to take off from work, having to come down and pay $7 a day for parking. And and you have other children, and you can't afford to have those points on your record when you're employed. So it has increased parent participation. It's more time effective because we can have the hearings quicker and get you in, get you out without having to wait for people and those things. You just click the button, everybody's there. And in the Court of Appeals, because it is not a jury trial or anything, using virtual conferencing is an excellent way for attorneys to be able to come down and do their argument, because arguments are time limited to 15 minutes per side. So you're talking about 30 minutes when it takes you longer to find parking. So it's better to have a virtual way that people can appear, especially for the appellate cases, because your research and those things are done outside of court.
Oh, that sounds like you really, technology is really working, and you really like that technology.
I've been using technology since I came to the court. I've had video conferencing available. We have a lot of of individuals that are incarcerated that want to file for divorce. They file for their divorce. We set up a video conference with ODRC. They can get their divorce online. So, technology is real, and it can make you more effective in the court.
Yes. Did you find that you've been able to do more cases? You're talking about being more effective. Have you been able to do more cases using the technology than you were previously?
We're able to do more quickly and more on time. When before COVID, all cases were set at 9 o'clock. And then you would have this huge, people refer to it as a cattle call, where all of the attorneys, all of the litigants are sitting in the hall. Now we do staggered times where your case may be scheduled at 9, somebody else at 9:30, someone else at 10. So you don't have as many people sitting in the hall. The county commissioners have written an order that you can't have more than 3 persons in the elevator. So you can't have more than 3 persons in the elevator. So we have set up what we call court navigators. They check the docket. They see what time you're scheduled. They don't let you up until your time. So it reduces the number of people in the hall, which reduces the chances that you might be encounter the contagion of COVID.
Now, how would you decide a case that is a hate crime as a minority woman in the Court of Appeals between a case of hate crime and freedom of speech? How would you make a decision on that?
First of all, the prosecutor's office would have to charge it as a hate crime.
Oh, I see.
So if it's not charged as a hate crime, that's nothing that you can consider when it comes to the Court of Appeals. But there is a difference in hate speech and freedom of speech. It can be a very fine line, but if it's hate speech that incites actions or those kind of things, it can be considered a hate crime. There are hate crime legislations out there, but if it's not charged as a hate crime, then you can't review it as a hate crime. So hate crimes, hate speech is normally followed by some type of an action to be considered a hate crime.
So it would have to have some kind of action. Well, what would you do to make sure that everybody that it's fair, that is a fair judgment? I mean, you're seeing all the court cases that are appealed. How would you make sure that it's a fair and just judgment?
Well, I need to say, you don't get to write every appeal.
You don't?
The appellate court, you work as a 3-judge panel. And, I've had the benefit of working in a smaller court, and we have monthly meetings. We decide everything as a group.
Oh, I see.
So I've had that benefit of learning how to work with people to be able to make sure that we're collegial, but we get the job done. So it is a 3-judge panel. There are 3 judges on it, and you are told which cases you will get to author. And
so you don't make the decision on which one comes in or which one comes in first. Like if you had a choice.
No, they are filed through the clerk's office.
Oh, okay.
And then they're assigned randomly to a 3-judge panel.
Okay.
And so you know when you're supposed to sit on the for cases, and each one is given the case that they are to author the opinion.
Okay.
And you have to have 2 people to agree on an issue to write the opinion. So it requires you to be collegial. It requires you to have respect for one another's opinion, and it just requires you to work together as a group.
Yes.
Now, if you don't agree with 2, you can write a dissenting opinion or that shows that you don't agree, and they can still appeal your decision to the Ohio Supreme Court. But you must be aware that the Ohio Supreme Court only takes about 6% of the cases that actually come before it. So if it's not a unique constitutional question or there's a conflict between the districts within the state, they may not take it. So many times the Court of Appeals is the court of last resort.
What, as a judge, what can you do to make them? We got a lot of things going on right now with COVID, stop violence in our community, particularly right now. There's a lot of domestic violence, violence on the street. What can a judge actually do to help to eliminate some of these problems that our community is facing?
Well, I believe that part of my responsibility as a judge is to be in the community educating about the policies, about procedures. We can always talk about procedure, how you do things in court. We can't tell you about specific cases. We're not allowed to do that. But I believe that I do a lot within the community, educating the community of what's available. I'm doing a domestic violence panel on Sunday the 25th at the Church of Christ at 5 o'clock. And in that domestic violence panel, we'll be talking about how you get a protection order. But I think what's really missing is good role models in the community. So I try to stay effective and active within the community so that our children see that you can be a professional, that you can be successful, that you can contribute to society, that you don't have to be a movie star, a basketball player, but you can be a doctor, you can be a lawyer, you can be a scientist, you can be a pharmacist, you can be anything that you want to be. So I believe that part of my job is to remain active and engaged with what's happening in the community.
And that is so true. I have seen you, actually witnessed you working behind the scenes, doing speeches. I said, oh my gosh. And I said that she's actually helping people behind the scenes, and she's a judge. And so you are really, we have seen you do a lot of things, and then we've seen you with pastoring your church. Could you speak a little bit about some of the things that your church is doing in the community too?
Part of what we've been doing through, particularly through COVID, is collecting cleaning supplies and taking them to the homeless shelters so that they have cleaning supplies.
Wow.
We did feminine hygiene products and hygiene products, which we distributed to Kaleidoscope Youth Center and to the YWCA Family Shelter. Because you have to, I can't imagine being homeless because I've never been. I've been a couch surfer a couple of times. When I first moved here and didn't have my own place, I stayed with relatives, and I consider that a little bit of couch surfing. So I have some idea of what it's like not to have your own place. But I can't imagine having to live in a shelter and not having your own cleaning supplies, not having your own supplies and everything.
Just your basics.
Your basic needs being met. Needs. So we have looked at these things, and it's something that even anybody can do. Anybody can spare a couple of dollars to buy some cleaning supplies or a couple of dollars to buy some feminine hygiene products and hygiene products, toothpaste and those kind of things at the dollar store, wherever your choice is. So those are some of the things we've been doing. We've been going Facebook Live and doing our services. We've been doing services on the parking lot. We put up a tent and put out some chairs for people in the community or anyone that wants to stop and hear the word and just be an encouragement to people that are down.
Now, you've been out as a grassroots organizer and you're a judge. When you're out there, what do you consider to be one of our biggest issues in our community?
Well, one of the biggest issues I see in our community, and I don't know if it's self-hatred, but why are we killing so many of our own people? You know, you have to look at the violence within our own community and wonder, is it coming from self-hatred? Has there been so much propaganda that's been in the news to make us feel that we have no value, so we don't value each other? And, you know, to see these young people that come before the court in 14, 15, 16, all of them using weapons and thinking that that really gives them power, and how much of it, of their life, is sucked away by that one act that they commit using a weapon. You know, so I think I that is one of the things that really troubles me, the violence within our community. So that is a huge issue. But I also think that racism has perpetrated some of that self-hatred. I think that racism has reared its ugly head in a way that I haven't seen since the 60s when I was growing up. So I would like to see us be able to bridge that gap between the races and bring some reconciliation in our communities.
So out of all these things that you've been doing, Judge Jameson, which one is your most that you had the most passion for?
I have a passion for the law. And I want to see the law fairly applied to every individual, regardless to race, creed, sexual orientation, gender, ethnicity, whatever. I have a passion for the law. When I went to law school, and that first day, I knew I was where I was supposed to be. And I believe that as a judge, I can have an impact by allowing people that come before the court to feel that their voices are being heard, that their case is going to be looked at on an individual basis, and that they're not going to get a cookie cutter approach from me, because I believe in researching the law. I believe in writing a strong opinion that I believe will stand even if it's appealed. So that's my passion has been for the law, and bringing others into the law, talking to students, making sure that they stay encouraged, that they get into law school, because Black judges matter, Black lawyers matter, and I think we have an obligation in society to make sure we are not the only ones.
All right, I'm getting a signal that it's time to go, and so but is there? Be sure to vote at the polls for Judge TERRI Jameson. Don't forget TERRI Jameson. So, Judge Jameson, I'd like to thank you for being on this week's program of All in Our Family. And I'll see you next week. Love you.